Caught in a whirlwind of emotions, I texted my girlfriend. Last night made me feel like myself again, but she snapped back, should I marry my friends then? After a drunken misunderstanding led to her feeling unsafe, can I mend this rift, or has my past ruined my chance for love? Hello everyone, I hope this is acceptable to post here. I apologize in advance for the length. Being concise is not a strong suit of mine, so here it is. Summary: my girlfriend told me she enjoys being awakened for sex. One night we both got drunk, with her being more intoxicated than I was. I attempted to initiate intimacy in the morning when I thought she had sobered up a bit, but I did not get beyond that point. I apologized and we reconciled, but the last few days have felt strange. I had a performance last night and may have caused some misunderstandings with my words today, leading me to spiral all day as a result. I am trying to determine how much space is appropriate in light of the situation. I am a 31-year-old male who has been involved in a long-distance relationship with a 28-year-old female for a few months now. We have known each other for several years through mutual friends but had never interacted until recently. She visited a few months ago with a mutual friend and we immediately clicked. It has genuinely been wonderful being with her. We share similar values and life goals, align in our faith, and understand what we seek in a partner. We live only a short flight apart, allowing us to see each other relatively frequently, and every visit has been fantastic. However, our last encounter was marred by a strange interaction that has impacted this weekend. For some context, when we first began discussing intimacy, we inquired about each other's kinks, and she mentioned that she enjoys being stirred awake for sex. Each time we have been intimate, it has begun with one of us waking the other in a playful manner, which has been great. However, last weekend we went out together, both consuming alcohol, with her drinking more than I did. I only had 2 drinks, which is my limit for driving us home later that night. We returned around 3:30 a.m., and while I was able to change into comfortable clothes, she quickly fell asleep. I chose to let her rest and eventually fell asleep beside her. She woke around 6 a.m. asking where her phone was, prompting me to retrieve it from the car for her. After helping her into her pajamas, I settled back down with her. While we were cuddling, I felt her edging closer to me, which is typically how we initiate intimacy when cuddled, and I took this as a signal to proceed. However, after a while, it seemed that she was no longer interested, so I stopped and went back to sleep. A few hours later, we woke up and tried to resume our day as normally as possible. However, roughly 4 hours before my flight home, she expressed her discomfort about me attempting to seduce her while she was asleep and under the influence after we returned from the bars. I was somewhat confused but immediately apologized. I explained that I had misinterpreted her signals and ceased when I sensed she was not interested. I clarified that our interaction occurred in the morning after I helped her, not at night, yet I felt remorse for misreading her signals. Even though I thought she had sobered up somewhat, I recognized that I should not act upon such impulses when there is a chance she is still intoxicated. She accepted my apology and we hugged and cuddled before I had to leave. Before my departure, she expressed a desire for me to visit again in 2 weeks. However, I noticed that her interactions with me this past week had become somewhat colder. I was troubled all week by the thought that I made her feel unsafe in any way. During a recent phone call, I apologized to her again, assuring her that I will never initiate anything after a night of drinking, establishing a boundary for both of us. It was then that she revealed she had previously experienced sexual assault while intoxicated. She clarified that my actions had nothing to do with how she felt, and she was trying to reconnect with her initial feelings for me but felt obstructed by a mental block. She admitted she could feel herself growing distant, which she did not want, and she intended to apologize but found herself annoyed and acting unkindly whenever she saw me on FaceTime or heard my voice. She expressed gratitude for my calm handling of the situation, stating it relieved some of her burden, and she was making an effort not to let her past affect her. I assured her I understood completely and reiterated that I am here for her unconditionally. It was somewhat unusual for her to mention that she wished I would have argued with her instead of being calm, as that way she could release her frustrations rather than bottling them up. However, she recognized that this response was toxic and acknowledged that we both value peace within our relationship. Throughout the day, she FaceTimed me several times and we continued texting. She still called me baby, which made me feel things were improving. Now I find myself feeling somewhat uncertain. For additional context, I am a part-time musician. I began pursuing music after enduring a difficult breakup of an 8-year relationship marked by emotional abuse from someone with borderline personality disorder. I dedicated 2.5 years to self-improvement before entering the dating scene again, focusing on therapy, fitness, and hobbies. My oldest sister, to whom I was extremely close, passed away unexpectedly last month, prompting me to take a break from music as I did not feel motivated to perform. I declined about 4 or 5 gigs recently, but last night I finally had a performance that went exceptionally well. I texted my girlfriend good morning as I typically do, and she inquired about the gig's outcome. I informed her it went great, mentioning that a few male friends came to surprise me at the performance, bought me a drink, and that it felt like the most authentic version of myself I had experienced in a while. Reflecting on this, I realized I could have chosen my words more carefully. After sharing this with her, she initially left me on read. Then, about half an hour later, she texted sarcastically that she too had gotten drunk the previous night and that it had been the most herself she had felt in some time, suggesting I should marry my friends who made me feel this way since I have been with her over the last few months. She conveyed that she found it inappropriate for me to say I finally felt like myself after spending these months with her. I attempted to clarify that this was not my intention. I merely meant that it had been a while since I had engaged in my passion for music, which allowed me to feel connected to myself. Here is where I believe I made a mistake. I mentioned that I had not performed since my sister's death, leading her to respond, "Why would you even bring up your sister? I'm not going to argue with you anymore after that." I endeavored to explain that I was not using her to shut her down, but rather indicating when I last played music publicly. I told her how much I cherish the feelings I experience when we are together and sincerely apologized for my poor word choice that caused the misunderstanding. In our previous conversation on Friday, after I apologized regarding the intimate incident, she communicated that she was accustomed to having partners who would argue with her, and it felt refreshing for me to be composed. Consequently, I maintained my calm demeanor while she was upset today. She was supposed to attend a concert today, so I encouraged her to enjoy herself and wanted to reiterate how deeply I care for her, assuring her that I would be available when she was prepared to talk. I am struggling with this issue because, in my previous relationship, my ex would often exploit disagreements as an opportunity to flaunt other men in front of me or to hold them against me later. Ultimately, that relationship ended with her betrayal. I am making an effort to prevent my past from influencing my current relationship. I have been trying to keep myself occupied all day and have not contacted my girlfriend to give her space. I am uncertain how much space is appropriate to provide, as I would prefer we discuss this tonight instead of both going to bed feeling upset over something I believe could be resolved through open communication and mutual understanding. I find it challenging to eat when such matters arise because my fight-or-flight response kicks in, but I am endeavoring to remain calm and composed. I am genuinely seeking guidance on how to approach this in a healthy manner because I care deeply for this girl and see significant potential for a healthy partnership. I recognize this is likely just a minor bump in our relationship, but my mind is racing with anxiety. I often feel I am making mistakes somehow and am unsure how I can improve. We have had minor disagreements in the past, but we have never argued. We have both been excellent at taking accountability. We regularly apologize to one another and move on. However, my past triggers are causing alarm bells to ring in my head, making me feel this situation is more severe than it may be. I feel like I am still processing major trust issues, yet I strive to acknowledge that everyone is different and must trust that she would not treat me as my ex did since she has faced her own betrayals before. Yet, I find myself concerned that she might be dancing with other men or be unfaithful to me, potentially returning with that news. I do not know how to prevent myself from thinking this way. I needed to articulate all of this so that when we do discuss things, I avoid overwhelming her with my thoughts. Additionally, I would appreciate advice on how to navigate this situation as I truly wish to mend anything I can to continue advancing our relationship. My question is, could I have handled this situation any differently than I did? With all the growth I have worked on in myself, how can I prevent my past triggers from affecting my daily life? I do not want to end this relationship over these misunderstandings, because I believe we can work through this and emerge stronger together. Story 2. I'm 32 and torn about reaching out to my estranged bio dad 70 who abused my mom yet begs for a talk. There are two sides to every story, he says. My manipulative mom flips out every time I mention him, but I crave closure and answers. What to do next? My mother and father married because she became pregnant with me. I have always wondered whether her pregnancy was intentional, due to various remarks made in the past. My parents had a very tumultuous and abusive relationship. Although there was no sexual violence, my father was a domestic abuser. He would hit my mother and my older half-sister, who is 6 years my senior and not his biological child. My father never hit me or my brother, who are both his children. He would lose his temper and explode, and I believe he might fit the criteria for bipolar disorder or manic depression. He would have violent outbursts, control us, and then cry profusely afterwards. My parents divorced when I was around 8 years old. We had weekend visits for a while, but that ended when I was about 13, as it became too stressful for me to continue seeing my father. I chose to stop going, and shortly after, my brother made the same decision. Both of my parents, including my mother, fixated more on their tumultuous relationship than on us children. They often exacerbated the situation instead of stopping to consider that it had to end for the sake of the kids. We were not neglected in terms of finances or physical needs, but I would argue that we were emotionally neglected and subjected to many situations that children should not have to endure. My mother constantly talked about how terrible our father was and the situation surrounding the divorce to us as children. Whenever we were with our father, we were incessantly questioned about everything our mother was doing. We were interrogated about her actions, such as what she was driving and whom she was seeing. When we were with our mother, she would continuously vent to us about our father, to the point that I dreaded talking to either of them. It became overwhelming as a child, and I then decided I could only maintain a relationship with one parent since neither could keep us out of their conflicts. My mother has a lifetime restraining order against my father due to the abuse she endured. During the lengthy divorce proceedings, which lasted about 10 years, she would still contact my father even after the restraining order had been established and amidst all the legal interventions. I understand this is common for victims of abuse, but as a child, it was incredibly frustrating. I do not excuse or justify domestic abuse by any means, as there is never an acceptable reason for it. My relationship with my mother, which used to be close, has become very strained since my early 20s. She is extremely manipulative, constantly lies, and engages in gaslighting. Additionally, she enjoys gossiping and has created numerous problems for me throughout my life. I maintain contact with her, but have also gone no contact multiple times for several months in my adult life. My older sister has also been completely out of contact with her for about a year at one point. My biological father has reached out to me a few times in adulthood, but he has not contacted my brother. On one occasion, he approached me while I was driving and begged me to call him repeatedly. Each time, he has always said that there are two sides to every story, among other remarks. I have always remained polite and cordial, but I do not initiate contact with him. Whenever I inform my mother about my father's attempts to reach me, she erupts in anger and exhibits extreme insecurity, fearing that I may talk to him. She continually reminds me of everything he did to her and to us as children. She even makes derogatory remarks about why he only contacts me and not my brother, implying that it's somehow my fault. She says things like, "Well, your brother does a better job of ensuring he knows not to reach out." It is frustrating because I cannot control his attempts to contact me. We encountered him again a few days ago while he was eating breakfast alone. He was supposed to leave the restaurant upon seeing us, as per the restraining order. However, he did not, but thankfully, the situation did not escalate. Since that incident, my mother has launched into another tirade about me not contacting him. My biological parents were supposed to sell their house and divide the proceeds when my brother turned 18. That never happened, and my brother is now 31. I have mentioned to my mother on several occasions that if something were to happen to her, our biological father could regain control over the house and evict both my stepfather and my brother, who still lives there. This is due to only their names being on the property deed. I suggested to her that it might not be a bad idea for one of us to reach out to him to see if he would willingly remove his name. My father allegedly never paid the required child support. This may be true, as my mother often lies to me, so I cannot ascertain what is factual. I am considering making contact with my father for several reasons. It would be beneficial to see if he would agree to remove his name from the house, resolving the issue before it escalates. I also desire some closure regarding our relationship. I do not wish to discuss the past, and at times I feel guilty about how he has reached out and begged me to contact him while I have not reciprocated. I have questions about my family history on his side, such as information related to ancestry, and I would not mind obtaining that information. My father is getting older and may not have much time left. Someone else mentioned that my brother and I are his sole heirs, and as undesirable as it sounds, inheriting something from him would serve as a form of retribution for the abuse and trauma we suffered as children. I realize this perspective might cast me in a negative light, but I comprehend the reasoning behind it. I genuinely do not wish to contact my father if he discusses our communication with anyone, particularly my mother, as the backlash would be unbearable, and I prefer to avoid drama with either of them. I am simply curious if anyone has any advice or has been in a similar situation. To summarize, does anyone have any advice if they have experienced a similar situation with a parent whom they have not communicated with extensively since childhood?